Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing from the Small Business Association of Michigan. My name is Brian Calley, the CEO of this fine institution. It's great to be with you. And as always, I'm joined by Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications. Thanks for joining us for today's show. And of course, thank you to our sponsor, Consumers Credit Union. I encourage you to visit consumerscu.org to learn a little bit more about their organization and how they might be able to help you with your small business banking. So we recently launched a new member benefit, something we're all really excited about, and we have a special guest on today to talk a little bit more about that partnership. So Brian, I'll turn it over to you and our guest.
All right, very good. Well, we are very pleased to have for the first time on our briefing, Keith Huckaby. And Keith, let's start out with just a quick overview of before we get into the actual product. Just yourself, the company, and what you do. Just a little smidgen about your background.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Keith Huckaby. I am a partner in RiskAssure. I am also the president of an insurtech company called SBAM. So my background has been in the insurance space with a family-owned business back in the day, and we have since merged with some other companies, SBAM namely. And so been spending a lot of time in this space of insurance and trying to figure out ways in which we can help people mitigate risk.
Excellent. Well, we have for a few years been trying to zero in on the risks that cyber and just the connectivity of the world provides a lot of benefits, but also a lot of risks that need to be managed and are really more high stakes than they have ever been. And sometimes, it's one of these things where everybody kind of acknowledges, yep, that's a problem. Yep, that's a risk. But getting real action has been challenging. So let's start with a level set here for the audience. What is cyber risk?
Yeah, so cyber risk from our perspective is the data in which you have in your network that you're trying to protect. And so the bad actors are going to come in and try to take that data from you. So we look at risk as, we all know we have it, but what is it? And how do we actually do something about it? So you have all of the tools out there that can help you with your networks, firewalls, encryption, multi-factor authentication, and things like that help protect your network. But what about what's on your network? And so we look at cyber risk as this cyber information value to say, hey, what's your file footprint? How big is it? Can you optimize it? And those sorts of things. So we focus more highly on the data that you have.
So what is the, so in data, especially, for example, at SBAM here, we're a membership organization. We have 31,000 members, which means that we've got this collection of information. We are constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve of the risks that are out there. But there are, I would say, kind of relatively new in the insurance world, cyber insurance. Why would a company need cyber insurance?
Well, you would need cyber insurance. It's really one of those questions of it's almost now an obligatory thing. You want to make sure that you do have the insurance in place so that if you were to get breached, you have a way in which to save your company from becoming insolvent. Because in some cases, those breaches are very, very costly, not only to your pocketbook and bank accounts, but also to your reputation and things like that. And so that's where the insurance companies can really help you with those things. Obviously, as you make a claim, to help you with your cash flows and things like that to make sure you can stay operating. But I believe in some cases, there's a lot of ways in which insurance is being distributed that, there's just not a whole lot of information around it yet. Especially the data deficiencies around how to underwrite for it and things like that. So in a lot of cases, businesses are like, hey, I'm being told I need this insurance, but what do I need it for? And in some cases, we're finding that the winners in this insurance space are actually the ones that are helping companies get more engaged with their risk and how to minimize that risk, and then in concert with an insurance policy around it.
Yeah, right. So like and a lot of things, like you have insurance on a car, it's kind of like you want replacement value of the car, or at least enough to pay off the loan. On your house, what's the value of the structure and the contents in the house, and that's how much insurance that you need. Our sense as we've been digging into this is that most businesses really have no idea what the right amount of insurance for cyber is. How would you even go? How do you go about estimating, working with your insurance agent, and and there are P&C insurance policies that have coverage, but exactly what's covered, and is it enough, whatever the limits are? How would you go about beginning to estimate that?
Yeah, I would say that unfortunately, as we've dug deeper into the underwriting of cyber insurance, it's still very much a gut punch at this point. Even when you're talking to the experts, it's a gut punch. So enter, what we're doing here in being able to give you that cyber information value using our tool. It helps you to actually be able to estimate, okay, I've got 100 devices, each one has $10,000 worth of cyber risk information value on that. Well, obviously you get to, somewhere to $10 million in risk, but like, oh my gosh, that's overwhelming. Well, the good news is that we can actually help engage with you, get you optimized so you don't have to insure all of those devices. We can get you to the right size of what you're looking here. Most cases, your cyber insurance policies are more of a glorified business interruption policy. So in most cases, you're wanting to insure yourself for the amount of money you're going to need to make sure you stay afloat. And that's generally what happens here. We're trying to make it to where it's actually more right-sized to what you actually need, and make sure that you're actually even more protected in leveraging our platform.
So I think all this lead up to really the punchline here is that there is actually a solution for that. So we're not talking about an insurance product here. We're talking about a way to estimate how much risk you have so that you can take it to your or compare it to your insurance policy and determine
That's
whether
right.
or not you have the right amount of coverage. So let's then dig into that in terms of the this process, this service that is now available to SBAM members, and then how you would go about accessing that.
Yeah, so basically what our RiskAssure tool helps you with is being able to do a scan in your network by device. And what it does is it tells you how much actual cyber information value you have there. It tells you your file footprint. So how many files do you have? And so then what we can then do is we can tell you by device, by file, where all these things live. So now you have kind of a receipt, if you will, understanding the contents of your network. And then what we can do is some $0 remediation tactics to say, hey, you know what? Your downloads folder has $1 million worth of risk in it for some reason. Just clear that out. And now that's gone. So you don't need to insure those things. So we can find ways in which we can do $0 remediation to really optimize. In fact, when we've run this platform for businesses, we usually optimize them 42% by just handling their downloads folders, their desktops, and recycle bins. If they just take care of those things. But then the great thing about our tool is that we also then help you monitor that to make sure that that's still in place, because again, humans are going to start putting more risk back into those places unless you can actually monitor those things. So we help with that. So then what this does for the business though, is says, hey, insurance company, I'm a better optimized customer because I know exactly what risk I have. And in fact, I now know where all my risk is. And I've got half of it is behind firewalls and encrypted. So I don't need to worry about insuring that piece of it because that's generally safe. But this other piece of it that I have to work with on a daily basis, I want to make sure I have an insurance policy in place for those things. So it helps you actually understand, is that flashlight in the dark room, if you will. We have often found that in most cases, someone will say, hey, I've got one document that has a social security number on it. Well, using our tool, we actually found on average that shows up in your system 12 times. So we can actually find those duplicates and get that stuff out so we can get that optimized for you before you get your insurance. And so then what you can do is you don't need $1 million policy. We've optimized you down to a $500,000 policy, let's say.
Great. And so we have now a partnership, an agreement or an arrangement for SBAM members where kind of the front door in evaluating your system is a free service that somebody can run a scan on their system, on their computers, and understand how much, financially speaking. And by the way, there are industry standards for what the kind of value out there in the wild. If somebody stole your information and got out there, what's the risk that you have? There are industry standards on that. But for the first time, as far as I know, for the first time ever, anywhere, that there's a system where you can essentially scan your system and put a dollar value on it. And then, as you had mentioned, that's one thing. So now you got a dollar. Here's the risk that we have. But then also, as you get deeper into potential services, is to say, where is that risk? How many are duplicate files, and how much can we just get rid of?
Right. Yeah.
It really is incredible. You get information in a lot of different ways, say with email, and you look at a file and you save it. Okay, you save it in one place, but that's also living in your downloads file. And
That's
so
right.
now you just doubled the risk, or two different places that the bad guys can get to it at. And if you eliminate that, it really does eliminate your risk, and therefore lowers the amount of coverage that you would really need to
That's right.
have. So I really do appreciate and I'm excited about what this means for our members, because what we found is that even those who had coverage it's rarely the things and the amount that was needed, because there really was no underwriting of the coverage. It was just a matter of a standard or a boilerplate type of a policy that just had an amount, and it might and is not really connected at all to
Yep.
the actual risk that exists with that customer.
That's right.
So,
And don't forget all the small fine print as well that limits your ability to make claims towards things as well. And the burden
yes.
as well to make that claim.
So how would a person go about getting started?
So they can visit, I believe right now it's on SBAM.org /RiskAssure, or you can go to RiskAssure.com directly. And like you said, we do have the free version for you to be able to go out there and test it out and see what it can do. It's super easy to just download it onto your computer and see what sort of results it gives you. Fair warning, there are ways to which you can then move to the next level. We have had people go out and download this and go, well, what now? It says I've got $1 million worth of risk. What do I do now? Where is it at? What do I need to do about this? Well, so that's kind of the point. We want to drive action and real human behavior around this to make sure you're protected. So we do have ways in which you can do that too.
Absolutely. So just check in the comments. Sarah has put the link in there, sbam.org /RiskAware, and that'll bring you right to everything that we've been talking about. And so you can at least get that amount. How much risk do you have on whichever device or system that you run the scan on? And it'll be eye-opening to you, I bet, in terms of the amount of risk that's out there should you receive some sort of a breach. Keith, I really appreciate you coming on the briefing today, sharing this with our members, but also with the partnership, and really focusing in on small businesses and managing this risk.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time.
All right. Well, thanks, Keith. And like Brian said, I did put the URL in the comments, and I know it'll be on Facebook as well. So today, Brian, we actually released some new survey results. SBAM has been conducting surveys of our members quarterly for about 3 years now, and which kind of allows us to benchmark and gauge the economic forecast for our members. But some interesting results in today's release, and I'll let you go over those.
Yeah, well, for the first time ever, we asked about confidence in the banking system, and the reason that we did that was because there were a couple of bank failures, and then a potential large bank failure internationally that ended up being a merger and acquisition to avoid that of Swiss Bank. But with what happened with Silicon Valley and California and Signature Bank in New York, we felt it would be timely to ask our members what their experiences have been, the confidence that they have, and then also if there's been any credit tightening, if they happen to have asked lately. And what we found was that there's actually still a lot of confidence in the banking system here among small businesses. 91%. We asked on a scale of 1 to 5. So those who chose 3, 4, or 5 in terms of extremely confident to neutral or it's fine type of a response, 91%. So only 9% were answered with a rating of 1 or 2, which was not confident, and I think that's pretty telling of the type of relationship that many small businesses have with their financial institutions. And good news generally. By the way, we had responses from 550 businesses. Most had not had recent. Most in the survey had not had recent credit asks in terms of loan applications to be able to evaluate whether or not credit standards are tightening, although that is an anticipated result of this time. The full results we have in a press release and available on our website as well. A few other things though, some of the questions that we asked quarter by quarter just to see how things are trending. 90% of respondents still say they're experiencing higher costs compared to normal times. That is pretty well in line with what we have been seeing. So pretty much across the board, everybody's experiencing higher costs. Inflation was still the top ranked concern by the respondents, and then 63% of small businesses report having a hard time finding and keeping their business fully staffed. And then 75% of respondents have increased wages to attract or retain employees over the last year. And then almost half said that they still plan to expand staff the next year, which I think is a pretty good sign, given that there's some expectation of the economy softening. Small businesses still generally confident, facing or reporting the same types of challenges. But the good news is that at least at this point, while rising costs and difficulty staffing are still big challenges, that so far it doesn't look like small businesses are adding concerns over the banking industry to that list.
Definitely some good news there. So let's go back to an issue we've covered last week and on Monday's show, which was this Goshen battery plant deal. Earlier this afternoon, I saw a couple of emails come through with updates on that situation. Can you share?
Yeah, so this is as the primer, this is the economic development incentives that are paid to large corporations from the state's Economic Development Corporation, the state's strategic fund. So $125 million was awarded to a company that makes batteries called Goshen. And it fell under controversy because it's a Chinese-owned company, and it's control. It has Chinese government control, as all industry in China does. And so, should the state be giving incentives to essentially a foreign government or a company controlled by a foreign government? And it was really celebrated when it was announced. A pretty big, a very big project for Mecosta County and Big Rapids, where it would be located. Some local controversy. It looked like it was in jeopardy. It was left behind when the Ford deal was funded by the Appropriations Committee. And but they did come back and just squeaked it through. So a 10-9 vote on the Appropriations Committee, which is the last stage that had to get approved for the deal to go through. 10-9 vote. The partisan divide on that committee, 13 Democrats and 6 Republicans. So what that means is that all 6 Republicans and 3 of the Democrats opposed, but 10 of the remaining majority party of the Democrats supported the funding of the project. I'm actually a little bit surprised by this. I knew that it was close. I knew that it was something that there was commitment to and a determination to try to get it passed through, but and it did just squeak by. But maybe a little surprised, because it is the trepidation among policymakers, the attention that that this received both nationally and here in our state was fairly intense. And it's somewhat controversial even in the community where it is to be housed. But it got approved, and that means that I believe that the deal is a go. And of course, there'll be some details at the local level, I'm sure, that still need to be ironed out. But what looked like it was in jeopardy last week is made it through this week.
And in another story update for our viewers, this one about the potential change to sales and use tax as it relates to delivery. What's the latest there?
Yeah, there's again, just a little reminder. Sales and use tax in the past has not been charged on installation and delivery of equipment and things like furniture. There's some things that are things, of course, everything's delivered unless you pick it up yourself. Usually furniture is going to be delivered to an office or to a business, and then there might be an installation process as well. Back in 2019, the Department of Treasury started to become much more aggressive on assessing or saying that sales and use tax 6% needed to be charged to the delivery and installation portion, the service portion of furniture sales. And so since then, there has been an effort to try to make it very explicit in the law that we don't charge, in Michigan, we don't charge sales and use taxes on services like that. We do on goods, tangible goods, but not on services. And what Treasury is saying is that, yeah, but delivery and installation, it's part of the good. It's not a separate thing from the good. So there's been an effort to change it. That effort back when the Ford deal was going through the process, there was a negotiation, and in that case, the majority party in the House was having a hard time getting enough votes. So the Democrats in the House couldn't get quite enough votes to get that Ford deal passed. Remember, Ford got $1.6 billion to create $2,500 or 2,500 jobs at an average of 45,000 each. They couldn't get enough votes. And so as they were trying to make a deal, there was a small group of Republicans that said, we've been wanting to get this sales and use on delivery and installation done for a while. We're kind of on the fence on this Ford deal. If you do that, then so it's kind of like a package. It moved through like a tax cut that mainly is for small businesses, along with this big business incentive. And we were pretty happy about this because sales and use taxes encroaching into services by administrative fiat was not something that we wanted to see go unchallenged. So anyway, it looked like it was a done deal. The governor agreed, the speaker agreed, but apparently the Senate majority leader, Senator Brinks, was not in the room for that deal. And when the House passed it, it went over to the Senate, and in the Senate, the majority party said, "Not our deal. It's not gonna pass," and or at least at this point, they haven't let it through. And it's not clear where it goes from here. It's something that it looked like it was a deal. The governor agreed to it. The speaker agreed to it. Apparently, the third leg to the stool did not. And so that's where it's hung up. I think, so on the issue, if you're in the furniture business, you're in limbo right now. There's a lot of other things that are, have delivery and installation that, any business that has delivery and installation is a substantial part of what they do. They're in limbo right now. Is this going to happen or not? But there's another concern too, where when you have a deal and there's kind of like an assumption that everybody's on board and people stretch and then it doesn't happen, it can have the effect of like a breach of trust, and putting future deals together gets that much harder. So when you have two parts of a transaction, one of them passes on good faith that the other one will pass, and then it doesn't, that next negotiation is a lot harder to get done. So I'm in hopes both for the policy itself, that it passes, but also I think for the institution and for the leaders to maintain a level of trust between them, that this deal still comes to fruition, even if one of the leaders just felt that she just wasn't involved enough or never signed off on it. Just the idea of goodwill and wanting to preserve the ability to make bipartisan agreements in the future. I think that this is one of those things that it would be a good area to stretch a little bit, make sure that the deal happens so that the next time you need to put together a bipartisan deal, that there's a trust, like you've got a track record together. Well, they got a track record either way, but you have a good track record together that will facilitate negotiations on the next deal instead of being an impediment to negotiations on the next deal.
All right. I want to give you all a quick reminder that we will be in Grand Rapids next week, April 26th, for one of our business owner networking events. We call these owner to owner because it's only business owners in the room. We'll be at Battle GR Tactical Games in Comstock Park from 4 till 6. So you can register on our website. We'd love to see you if you are in that area. Have a great rest of your week, and we will be back here Monday at 3 p.m.
Thanks, everybody. See you on Monday.